Hello everyone, my name is Shayal and our group is going to present on quality education and the role of teacher in Fiji, mobilizing global and local values. I am going to present on the summary of the article and main highlights of the journal article are as follows. Research was conducted in Fiji between 2014 and 2016 and it was jointly funded by British Academy and USP. Secondly, the authors discussed about the Fijian education policy, which is headed in the opposite direction. Since change is brought by educational policy in the education system, we need good policies. According to the authors, educational policies of small state island like Fiji is driven by tests and exams. The ministry also expects the teachers to have 100% pass rate across all year levels. Moving on, the authors also discussed about the nature and the quality of Fijian teachers and puts across the teacher's perspective to explain more about it. The authors also discussed about the relationship between quality teachers and quality education. According to them, quality teachers is equals to quality education. They highlighted main challenges faced by the teachers at the MOE level. Repeated shift to policies is a challenge for them. And at school level, they face lack of resources, facilities are there. Teachers also face heavy workloads and student-teacher ratio is a problem for them. Students' attendance and diverse student learning needs is also a challenge for the teachers. Community level lack of parental support is there. Curriculum does not encourage active learning, only encourages rote learning. Moving on, comments on the topic. The topic is related to the article is related to the topic and the author talks about the quality education and about the quality of teachers throughout the article. The aim of this article is to investigate about the quality education and the quality of teachers in a developing island state like Fiji. Objectives. The objective of this article was to find out the nature and quality of teachers and teaching in Fiji, the challenges of teachers' work and lives, priorities for successful qualitative reform, theoretical implications for the process of education policy transfer and quantitative improvement. Moving on, research questions. No research questions were written, but instead research questions were refined to focus on the three main issues. So from those three main issues, we came up with the three questions. What do the stakeholders think about the nature and quality of teaching in Fijian schools? Secondly, do the stakeholders understand the challenges faced by the teachers? Lastly, what are the changes in educational policy if the quality of education needs to be improved? Now I give this time for the next presenter to present.
Thank you. Kind greetings to you all. I will be elaborating on the critical examination of this literature, which comprises of discussions on the arguments that are present in this literature, whether the literature is logical or coherent, and also the assumptions, biases, or any parts that are missing from this literature. To begin with the arguments in the literature, the authors support the argument that the teacher performance can and should improve as the quality of teachers can be held accountable to some extent for the poor levels of literacy, numeracy, and the life skills of school leavers. The authors also argue that the low quality of education and teachers have been given a relatively high attention in the Pacific Islands. The authors present the argument that the possibilities for improved learning are grounded in an important way in their conceptions of the ideal teacher. The structural constraints of teachers' work and life must be considered in order to achieve performance improvement. Secondly, is the literature logical or coherent? The literature emphasizes on how the different stakeholders in Fiji understand the issues of teachers and the impact of this on improving the quality of teaching. The arguments and discussions presented in the literature are highly logical and relevant. The literature focuses on numerous techniques to prioritize teacher education, such as the reforms of teacher training institution, improved courses and qualification, changes in the duration and nature of practices, the development of new professional development of practicing teachers and school administrators. There has been a lot of innovation around the use of distance and flexible learning in teacher training and development. Moreover, the third component of the critical examination of the literature looks at the biases, assumptions, and paths missing. The literature does not contain any biases. It provides a comprehensive discussion on quality education and the role of teachers in Fiji. The literature examines the perspectives of practitioners on the nature and quality of teachers and education in Fiji, the challenges of teachers' work and life, the priorities for successful quality reform, theoretical implications for the transfer and quality improvement process of education policy. The literature provides comprehensive discussions, and it also considers the challenges of teachers' work and life. I will now give this time to my fellow group member, Varanisese, to elaborate on the critical examination of the methodology. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My presentation will be on research methodology critique, where we are going to be looking at the methodology used in this research article. Just before I start, some information about the authors. The article that we used is a partnership research article, and it had 6 researchers altogether, or the 6 authors. And from the 6 authors, there were 4 researchers who were based in Fiji, and there were 2 from the United Kingdom. And the fieldwork was mainly done by the 4 researchers who were based in Fiji, or their Fijian colleagues, and the linking analysis to the international theoretical literature were done by the UK partners. These researchers cited in this article were based mainly here in Fiji, and the timeline for them to conduct this research was a 3-year research, which was from 2014 to 2016. The methodology used. When we're going through the article, we have seen that the 6 researchers have used qualitative method. So qualitative method, this research methodology that we have used, it had increased their understanding. That is what we have seen in the article, that after using this qualitative method, they managed to collect a lot of information, okay, on their article, on the research question. And their research question was that, how are issues of teacher becoming, being, and belonging understood in Fiji by different stakeholders, and what implication does this have for the drive to improve the quality of teaching and learning? So this was their research question. Okay, so qualitative method is used. For the next one, still on the qualitative method, we have also gathered in the article that there was a theoretical framework that they have used, that they have based their research on. Moving on to the next slide. Okay. The type of qualitative method that they have used. Okay. We know that there are 2 types of qualitative method, which is positivist and interpretive paradigm. Okay. So out of the 2 in the article, we have identified that they have used this interpretive paradigm method. And in the interpretive paradigm method, okay, they have used the softer research in which the following were practiced. Okay. They have used questionnaires which were distributed to students, teachers, stakeholders in the Fiji, questioning people. They went out to have their Tawana and Tarava session with the community, even in schools. They were listening to people, And the third one was their interaction with the people or participants in order to understand their experience and their needs. So this was what they did during their research. The methods used. The local fieldwork, which was done in Fiji, was done for 5 months. The methods used were the questionnaires, like what I had mentioned. Personal narrative and open-ended questions were used when they were compiling the questionnaires and they distributed them. Talanga sessions, these are the focus group discussion. Okay. Planned one with predetermined question. Next one was the Talanga session, free movement of participants with a flexible discussion based on the key themes. And okay, in addition to these methods, there were prior published findings and knowledge of the experts involved in the research. There were even some experts doing the research. The question, were the methodology and method adequate? Were they suitable to answer the research issue or the research questions that they had planned at the beginning? Okay. From the article we have read, there was a wide range of information that were collected. There were in-depth information were gathered from the Talanga and the Talanga session. Okay. And throughout, from the researcher's explanation about the article, they have said that information that were not gathered in one of the methods, okay, like a questionnaire or in Talanga, they were obtained from the other methods that we use, maybe from Talanga. Okay. So they have covered that. So researchers noted their observations and also their feedback during the Talanga session also helped them to answer the question and to collecting the data for their research questions. So were the methodology and method adequate? The answer is yes, they were adequate. Thank you. Now I give this time to the next presenter to present the next slide.
Thank you, Madam Varanisese. I'm Mrs. Tarai, and I will be commenting on the bibliography and also review the conclusion. Firstly, the referencing was alphabetically ordered. As we all know, the references in the educational studies has to be ordered alphabetically. This is a requirement. Secondly, instead of using APA referencing, the research uses Harvard referencing style. It was mentioned in our course that in every educational studies, we should be using APA referencing and not Harvard referencing method. Okay, thirdly, the publication year of the references shows a huge difference. Now, if you look onto the slide, there's 3 in the 19th century and there's 53 in the 20th century. There's a huge gap. But even though a huge gap was noted, our group has verified that the resources were all reliable, all updated and valid for use, because they were all current resources. Now, finally, there is a fair number of references based in the traditional and international context. As we have noted in this research article, the traditional context was the main subject, but it was also supported equally with the international context. And these are the list of resources, as I have mentioned earlier. There's 3 in the 19th century and 53 in the 20th century, a total of 56 resources altogether. Now let's look onto the conclusion. An outstanding conclusion was made. We found out that the original position was strongly tied. Okay, so a restatement of the problem was made. and then a summary of the key arguments and findings. Then a perfect connection to the main subject of the article. D, there's an acknowledgement of the limitations of the research. And then finally, the discussion of the implication has made it easier for future recommendations and future work. Okay, so that's the end of our presentation. And now we give this time to the floor for further questions. Thank you very much.
My question is, since this article was compiled by the researchers in Fiji, which research framework did the author use?
Thank you for your question. Yes, the research I've mentioned in the slide that they have used theoretical framework as a base to their research. Looking at it, the traditional method they have used the Laucala framework in this research. And we have seen that it's quite obvious too that they have used the Laucala framework since Dr. Ponai is part of the research too. And just by reading through the article, we have seen that they have used it.
Any other questions?
Yes, ma'am. How did you know that the resources were reliable?
Thank you for the question. As a group, we verified the informations and we noted that there was accuracy, which means the resources were trustworthy. Also, there was authority, proper credentials on the source. Then the currency, the older resources still useful, but the revised or updated versions are appropriate. And the coverage, the content and relevance to the subject was determined. I hope this answers your question. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, VINAKA, and that's all from Group 5. Thank you very much.